Welcome to This Explainer, where we are going to build the ultimate blueprint for acing your MUET Task 2 argumentative essay with absolute confidence. Look, if you've ever stared at a blank page, feeling that panic set in as the clock just ticks down during an exam, you are definitely not alone. Writing an argumentative essay under pressure is genuinely tough. But today, we're looking at a structural blueprint that can transform that stressful, chaotic experience into a totally predictable process. We're going to see exactly how to construct a solid, high-scoring essay right from the ground up.
So let's start with the hard reality of this exam. You have exactly 50 minutes to complete this writing task. 50 minutes. That is less than an hour to read a prompt, brainstorm ideas, organize your thoughts, write a complete essay, and proofread the whole thing. For a lot of students, this number right here is the biggest source of anxiety. It just feels like a ticking time bomb.
And within that 50-minute window, you need to write a minimum of 250 words. Now, I know 250 words might not sound like a massive novel, but when every single sentence needs to be coherent, grammatically correct, and logically tied to an argument, well, hitting that word count with high-quality content becomes a serious hurdle. You need the volume, sure, but you also need precision.
Okay, here's our blueprint for today. We'll be going over the MUET Task 2 challenge, the 5-paragraph blueprint, mastering the MEEM technique, nailing the conclusion, and finally, some essential tips for success. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the MUET Task 2 challenge.
So how do we conquer these constraints of 50 minutes and 250 words without totally panicking? The answer is simple. You need a foolproof, step-by-step structural framework. It is literally the ultimate antidote to exam panic. When you have a predetermined structure locked in your mind, you completely take the stress out of facing a blank page. You don't waste any of your precious mental energy deciding how to organize your thoughts. You just take your brilliant ideas and drop them into the slots you already know exist. It's about relying on a reliable system, not just waiting for inspiration to strike.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 5-paragraph blueprint.
The source material recommends a highly regimented 5-paragraph structure to achieve a high-scoring essay. It's wonderfully straightforward. It consists of one introduction paragraph where you make your stand, exactly 3 body paragraphs to support that stand with real-world examples, and one concise conclusion to wrap the whole thing up. That's it. This is your golden ratio for hitting that 250-word minimum while keeping your argument laser-focused. When you're writing under a strict time limit, simplicity and predictability are your absolute best friends. We aren't trying to reinvent the wheel. We just want to deliver a clear, compelling argument that graders can easily follow and, most importantly, reward.
Let's zoom in on the front door of your essay house. Your first paragraph is the introduction, and this is where you lay the groundwork. You can't just jump straight into your arguments. First, you've got to hook the reader with some context about the topic. Next, layer in some relevant background information. Then, and this is absolutely vital, you must state your clear position. Are you agreeing, disagreeing, or taking a partial stance? Pick one. Finally, list your main points in a clear thesis statement. That thesis is literally the roadmap for your grader. It tells them exactly what to expect in the next 3 paragraphs.
All right, Section 3, mastering the MEEM technique. Body paragraphs are usually where essays start to lose focus. Writers start rambling, they lose track of their main point, or they just rattle off facts without actually explaining them. So, mastering this next concept is absolutely crucial. Enter the MEEM technique. This is your secret weapon for flawlessly constructing body paragraphs 2, 3, and 4. MEEM. It stands for main idea, elaborate, example, explain, and mini conclusion. By forcing yourself to include every single one of these elements in each body paragraph, you guarantee that your arguments are not just stated, but fully developed and proven.
Let's actually walk through these MEEM steps together so you know exactly how to execute them. Step 1. Start with a really strong topic sentence that clearly states your main idea for that paragraph. Step 2. Elaborate on that idea. Give it a little more flavor and depth. Step 3. Provide a specific real-world example to anchor your idea in reality. Step 4. Explain exactly how that example proves your main idea. Do not assume the grader will just make that connection for you. And finally, Step 5. Finish with a mini conclusion. Just a single wrap-up sentence that ties the whole paragraph neatly together before you move on to the next point. If you repeat this process for all 3 body paragraphs, your essay is going to be an impenetrable fortress of logic.
Now for Section 4, nailing the conclusion.
For your 5th and final paragraph, the formula is delightfully simple.
You do not introduce any new information here at all. Instead, you just restate your overall stand. But, and listen up because this is a big one, you must use different words. Show off that vocabulary. Don't just copy and paste from your introduction. Next, quickly reiterate the main points of your thesis statement. And finally, provide a strong, impactful closing line to wrap things up with a bow. A great closing line leaves the grader nodding in agreement.
Let's bring it all home with Section 5, Essential Tips for Success.
One major takeaway from the source guidelines is how important it is to take a firm stand. You absolutely have to avoid what we call fence sitting. You know, that thing where you say, well, both sides make good points, so I can't really decide. No, this is an argumentative essay. Your goal is to argue. You need to take a clear, undeniable position right from the start in your intro and fiercely defend it throughout the whole piece. Confidence in your position directly translates to a much stronger essay.
Next up, let's talk about the actual words you're putting on the page. The guidelines heavily emphasize maintaining strictly formal language. That means no slang, no overly casual colloquialisms, and absolutely zero net speak. So leave the text abbreviations out of it. Treat this like the academic paper it is. Furthermore, you need to smoothly link your sentences and paragraphs using cohesive devices. Think of words like furthermore, however, and consequently. These words are literally the mortar holding the bricks of your essay together. They guide the reader's brain from one logical point to the next without any bumpy, awkward transitions.
So how do you actually handle that brutal 50-minute time limit? The best strategy is to divide and conquer. The ideal breakdown is spending your first 5 minutes strictly on planning. Sketch out your thesis and your 3 MEEM outlines. If you dedicate 5 solid minutes to planning, you can spend the next 40 minutes purely writing, just executing your blueprint without having to stop and think about what comes next. And crucially, leave your last 5 minutes for checking. Using that final 5 minutes to catch silly grammar errors, missing punctuation, or spelling mistakes can easily bump your score up a whole band.
We've covered the strict constraints, the 5-paragraph structure, that powerful MEEM technique, and the final polish. If you truly internalize this blueprint, the anxiety of that ticking clock just vanishes. You'll walk into that exam room feeling like an architect ready to build. Master this blueprint, and I'll leave you with this final thought. Once you don't have to worry about the mechanics of how to structure your essay, what powerful, world-changing arguments will you choose to build?